the evening air, thick with the scent of freshly mowed lawns and cooling asphalt, as the sun dipped below the tree line on Willow Creek Lane. It was one of those quiet suburban streets where everybody knew everybody, where golden retrievers barked at the UPS truck and kids played street hockey until the porch lights flickered on. The gentle whir of sprinklers mixed with the low HMM of central air units fighting a losing battle against the late summer heat. Hank Dutch Morrison was 72 years young. With hands like well-worn baseball mitts and a face etched with stories of highways you won't find on any GPS today, he walked with a slight hitch, a souvenir from a motorcycle wreck back in '83. And his silver beard was always trimmed just so, the way his late wife Marlene liked it. She'd been gone 3 years now, and ever since. Hank spent most evenings in his garage, lovingly polishing the 1967 Harley-Davidson Electra Glide they'd ridden together across 47 states. That Harley wasn't just metal and chrome to Hank, it was 40 years of memories. It was Marlene's arms wrapped tight around his waist on those winding mountain roads. It was the machine that had carried him through the darkest days and brought him into the brotherhood that saved him. Hank was a founding member of the Rust Belt chapter of the Hells Angels. He'd hung up his colors 15 years back, when his knees started to give him trouble. But the brotherhood never forgot. Once a month, riders still came by his garage to hear stories from the old days, and once a year, on Marlene's birthday, they'd ride in formation past her resting place. But on this particular evening, Hank was inside brewing some tea when it happened. Before we go any further, if you believe in respecting your elders and standing up for what people have built with their sweat and tears, and in the unbreakable bonds of brotherhood that protect those who can't protect themselves, then please hit that like button, drop a comment, share this story far and wide, and subscribe to the channel. Tell us where you're watching from, because stories like this remind us that karma is very real, and sometimes it roars in on 400 motorcycles. The 5 teenagers had been pounding back cheap beer in the parking lot of the old Kmart 3 blocks away. They were bored, restless, looking for some action. Chad Billings was 18, the ringleader, cruising around in his dad's Range Rover with the arrogance of someone who'd never faced a real consequence in his entitled life. His 4 buddies were cut from the same mold, trust fund babies, spoiled rotten, kids who thought the world was their personal playground. They cruised past Hank's place and saw the garage door was up. They saw that old Harley glowing under the fluorescent lights. And Chad got an idea 5 minutes later. Hank heard the crash from inside his kitchen. The sound of shattering glass and tearing metal ripped through the quiet evening like a gut-wrenching scream. He dropped his teacup and limped as fast as his bum leg would carry him. What he found in the garage stopped his heart cold. The Harley was on its side. The windshield was shattered. Someone had taken a baseball bat to the gas tank, leaving huge dents in the custom paint job that Marlene had picked out. The mirrors were ripped clean off. The leather seat was sashed and ruined, and spray-painted across the garage floor. In bright red letters were the words, "Gramps' ride for old geezer chumps." Hank stood there, waved silent. His hands trembled, but not from age. Something cold and hard settled behind his eyes. He didn't cry. He didn't swear. He simply pulled out his flip phone and made one call. "Dutch here," he said, and his voice as steady as stone. "Someone just trashed Marlene's bike. I need my brothers." Within an hour, the first motorcycles arrived. By midnight, there were over 100. By dawn, there were 400 Hells Angels lining Willow Creek Lane, their engines rumbling like distant thunder, their leather vests a solid wall of red and white patches. They didn't come to threaten. They came to investigate. 3 members with backgrounds in private security pulled the security camera footage from a neighbor's Ring doorbell. The Range Rover's license plate was crystal clear. Chad Billings' father was a partner at a big law firm downtown. His son had never been told no in his entire life. That was about to change. The Hells Angels didn't touch Chad or his friends. They didn't need to. What they did instead was far more devastating. First, 400 motorcycles rumbled down to the old Kmart parking lot, where the 5 teenagers had left their cars overnight. They formed a perfect circle around those vehicles. Then, one by one, they began to document every single scratch, dent, and imperfection already on those cars. They snapped photos. They recorded video. They created a complete record. Then, they waited. When the teenagers showed up the next morning to get their rides, they found 400 bikers sitting silently on their motorcycles, engines off, arms crossed. Not a word was spoken. The teens panicked, called the cops, accused the bikers of vandalism. But here's the thing about consequences. The Hells Angels hadn't touched those cars. They had simply watched them. And when the police arrived, the bikers showed them the security camera footage of who had really committed vandalism the night before. Chad Billings was arrested on camera by officers who had been called by his own father. The irony was definitely not lost on anyone. But the Hells Angels weren't finished. Over the next week, the footage of the 5 teenagers trashing Hank's motorcycle spread across the internet like wildfire. Local news picked it up. Then national news. Chad's father's law firm started blowing up with calls. Clients didn't want to be associated with someone whose son destroyed a veteran's memorial to his dead wife. The partners voted. Chad's father was asked to resign. The prestigious college Chad had been accepted to reviewed their decision. His admission was revoked. The other 4 teenagers faced similar consequences. Jobs lost. Scholarships rescinded. Social media accounts flooded with comments from bikers around the world, none of them threatening, all of them simply asking one simple question. How would you feel if someone destroyed your grandma's most precious memory? Hank Morrison sat in his garage 2 weeks later, surrounded by 40 of his oldest brothers. They'd pooled their money. They'd called in favors from custom shops across 3 states, and there, gleaming under the same fluorescent lights, was a brand new 1967 Electra Glide, restored to match the original in every detail. But it wasn't just any restoration. On the gas tank, where Marlene's favorite color had once been, there was now a small addition, a painted portrait of her face, smiling, with the words, "Still riding together" underneath. Hank finally cried then. For the first time since the vandalism, he let the tears fall. His brothers stood around him in silence, their hands resting firmly on his shoulders, their presence speaking volumes, saying everything that words simply couldn't convey. "You are family," one of them finally said, his voice thick with emotion. "And family protects family." Chad Billings? Well, Chad Billings is currently flipping burgers, working at a greasy fast food joint, trying to scrape together enough cash to pay off the restitution he owes for all the damage he caused. His father? He was forced to sell his precious Range Rover. And Chad's former so-called friends? They don't even give him the time of day anymore. And every single Saturday morning, Hank Dutch Morrison fires up his brand new Harley, and he rides past Marlene's grave, 400 brothers trailing behind him, their engines roaring, a thunderous chorus of love, a symphony of loyalty that echoes powerfully across the entire valley. And before we wrap things up here, we have one very special request for you, our viewers. Leave a comment down below with the words, "Respect your elders." Show the world that you stand with Hank and with Marlene. Because sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't violence. No. It's simply showing the world the true character of someone, and then letting the consequences take care of the rest. There's an old saying, a sort of biker proverb, among the Hells Angels. That perfectly encapsulates everything that happened that week. You can tell the true character of a man by how he treats those he thinks can't fight back. Those 5 teenagers, they thought Hank Dutch Morrison was just a helpless old man with a shiny antique motorcycle, a Gramps ride for old geezer chumps. They had no idea, absolutely no idea, that he had 400 brothers who vehemently disagreed. They didn't know. they simply didn't know that some debts cannot be paid with mere money. They were completely oblivious, utterly unaware that karma rides a Harley, and now they will never forget. Never.